Welcome. I'm David T. Phillips, your host each Wednesday for Estate Planning Made Easy, the podcast that teaches you how to keep your wealth in the family. Well, this is part 2 of mistake number 7 in my book, The 10 Most Common Estate Planning Mistakes and How to Avoid Them, which is losing value of your estate due to poor investments and just bad timing. I mean, the more we lose in our estate, the less we have for our children to inherit. And I've actually had some clients that have called in and said, hey, David, I'm kind of at risk over here mostly, and I want to make sure that my kids and grandkids have something. So I'm going to buy a life insurance policy from you to guarantee that my kids can have something, my grandkids can have something, and which gives me the liberty to go ahead and take some risk. So, but whatever. I have a special guest. He was our guest last week, and it's my son Todd. He's my oldest son out of 4 kids, and he's the president of Estate Planning Specialists. He is the co-author with me in Generational Wealth Strategies. We have a couple of other authors. We have Rick Durfee and Melody Gatz that are authors of our newsletter, Generational. We kind of growing pretty fast. Yes. I was kind of surprised about that, how fast it's been growing, and excited about it. But Todd writes a column in here every month called Safe Money Corner. And in there, he also publishes the best of the month, which is a report. And I will put that in the show notes, by the way, so that our listeners can have that. But Todd, welcome, and glad to have you here. This is part 2. So we're going to continue on where we left off last week. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Good. Well, I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to turn the time over to you. And I know sometimes my stories take too long, and I know you know that. You've been the recipient of a lot of my long stories, but I'll try to keep this one short. So I got kind of the bug one time about Blackjack, with the video games and video stuff, with video poker. So I decided one time I'm going to take $40 and I'm going to go down to the Blackjack table. And I started winning. This was at Vegas. We were at Money Show speaking, and I started winning. And I had no idea, I'm stacking the stacks. I'm kind of looking and see, okay, well, that's more than I started with, and it keeps growing. And my wife, Jane, walks up behind me. And unbeknownst to me, she steals some of my chips, doesn't steal them, she just takes them off the table. And so as the time went on, I kept winning for a while. She kept taking the chips off, and I lose everything. So I turned to Jane and I go, well, let's go do something else. I lost everything. She goes, no, you didn't. I took some chips off the table. And she had she had about $100 worth of chips in that. I had no idea. It was crazy. She had about $100 worth of chips in her purse. So kind of my story leads to what we're talking about here in safe money investing, or not losing our assets to poor investments, bad choices, bad decisions, bad timing. That's all part of estate planning. If you have nothing because you lost it all, well, that was kind of your mistake, especially if you had something. So Todd, talk to us about safe money. What is safe money, and what are you recommending these days? I know there's an investment out there right now that has a big 8% bonus going in. So just tell us a little bit about safe money, first of all.
Yeah. So, right now, I think I ended the last podcast on it's just a great opportunity for safe money. The rates are super high. We've got treasuries, we've got CDs, we've got multi-year guarantees, indexed annuities, all that you should be able to get a 5% return at least right now. It's a very high rate environment. And so there's fantastic opportunities to lock in, get some guaranteed return. You don't have to take the risks that we used to have to take with 0 interest rates. Now we have some terrific opportunities. So I'll give you an example. Somebody could get a 3-year multi-year guarantee annuity. So it's guaranteed for 3 years, no moving parts, for 5.9%. That's a pretty good rate. It
So
used to
what's
be,
a CD
it was
plan?
just
What's a
barely
CD
6.
plan paying
A
right
CD, you probably get 5.
now?
So
Okay.
typically the multi-year guarantee annuities, they call them MIGAs, are going to be about a point to a point and a half higher than CDs in a normal market. Now, when the Fed kept raising the Fed funds rate, the shorter term were actually pretty high. But in general, you're looking at about a 1 to 1.5% higher rate on the multi-year guarantees, the MIGA annuities, and they're typically longer. So CDs are going to be 30 days to maybe 2 years. You can get 3 year, but the value proposition there is probably going to be a year to year and a half, 2 years on the CDs. The MIGAs are 2 to 5 years. Some are, you can get all the way to 10. So there's some pretty good 10 years actually that are pretty high compared to other rates. We just had a 10-year that was paying 6. They just dropped the rate, but we had a lot of clients get into the guaranteed rate for 10 years and lock that in. Terrific
For
rate
6%.
of return for 6%.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is a great opportunity right now. One of the opportunities, or one of the things we're seeing real popular right now, is we have an indexed annuity. So the return is linked to indexes. Now there's a lot to the indexed annuity, which is why I wrote a book on them started originally in 2003, and then rewrote it 2014. And actually this is another 10-year anniversary. So I guess I'm doing it every 10 years, don't even know it. Now it's 2024.
And it was originally, it was the book, I forget what it was called, Guaranteed something, but then we changed it to, you changed it to Future Retirement Savings.
Yeah, it's Growth Without Risk.
Oh, Growth Without Risk was the first go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a cool name. I like that, because that really kind of does tell the story of an indexed annuity, is Growth Without Risk, which I'll have you explain here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But then it went to the Future Retirement Savings, and then it went to, now it's been renamed. That's going to be coming out in the, like you said, the 3rd edition, the Guaranteed Income: How to Lock in Double-Digit Returns for the Rest of Your Life. That's what we're going to go with for a while here on that. And you're almost done with that, right? You're in like an editing.
Yeah, I'm almost done. I should have that here next week, at least done for the special report form, and then book form will probably be a few weeks later, because I'm going to have to edit it.
Okay. And they'll be able to get that through our website, epmez.com. They'll be able to go to shop.epmez.com, get that as well. So good. Well, that's good. But anyway, so let's just talk a little bit about indexed annuities. What are they? I know that I was kind of involved in some of the early, myself and a group called Physicians Mutual, a life insurance company back in Baltimore, and they were like the first ones to come out with indexed annuities. I know there were some predecessors to that, different versions like direct recognition and stuff like that. But an indexed annuity was the first. Indexed universal life is kind of like the thing for life insurance. But index annuities, back in the mid 80s is when they came out.
I'll kind of give the history. So
yeah, go ahead.
The first one was in 1994 when they first came out. And the one that you did with Physicians Mutual in 95 was actually one of the first to really go on the whole market. And so that was
pretty cool.
It was a pretty neat opportunity. And I kind of timed it just right, because I was still finishing up finance major at ASU. You had worked with Physicians Mutual to come out with an indexed annuity. And it was pretty revolutionary. It was pretty neat. And I'll tell you, and this is kind of why I gravitated to this and started writing books on it, was because I got to see how great it was from that 95 to 2005 era, because we had terrific growth, because an indexed annuity is going to participate in the growth of the index, or the upside of the index that it's tracking. So it'll be tied to an index like the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and it will participate in the upside. But what's neat is no participation in the downside. So when the market tanked, you just sit on the sidelines with a zero loss.
So it's not like a mutual fund or a variable annuity that if it tanks, you lose and you have to build to get back up to where we are. And it's not like that at all, right?
Yeah. So you're kind of automatically just in the contract. You're the greatest market timer in the history of Earth, because you're guaranteed to be in the market when it's up and out of the market when it's down. So it's a great idea. And it was terrific in the beginning. The first iterations we'll probably never see those days. I think the insurance companies, the actuaries started to see that maybe they were a little too generous in that first stage. But I mean, we had phenomenal returns. And then of course we grew a lot in the bull run in the late 90s. And then the 2000 tech wreck came, and our clients all sat on the sidelines, didn't lose a penny. And then it rebounded in 2003, 2005. And I mean, of all the things we were offering, it definitely had the best returns. We were looking at 9-10% annualized returns back then. So it was really, really fantastic. And typically the way they're designed, just the way that the companies make them, is to have about a 1% return, 1.5 higher than the MIGAs. That's the idea. Mm-hmm. Now, so when they're designing, and that you can do better depending on the market. We've had clients, timing, yeah. we've had clients when the market was great and they picked the right index, making 20% in a year. But we've also had times where the market's been up 20% and we just picked the wrong index.
So an index would be like the S&P 500, the Dow, or the NASDAQ, and there's some iterations of that now too. So.
Yeah, and I really get into the indexes in the new book. I talk about, because there's been a lot of new indexes coming out. Just about every large bank you've heard of has their own index that they're creating with the insurance companies.
But you're not in the index, you're just using it as your marker, right?
Right. You're using it as your marker. You're not actually invested in the stocks in the index, but it's using it as your marker to decide how much interest you're going to make. Mm-hmm. And they have some moving parts or modifiers based on to determine your interest that you're going to make on the performance of the index. So they might put something like a cap on the upside. Maybe the index is up 10% and you have a cap of 5. Your most you're going to make is 5 up to the cap. Or there's participation rates. Some indexes we have, you're getting 200% participation. So if that index is up 10, you're going to make 20. If the index is down, you're always going to, the neat thing is you're always going to take a 0 loss when it's down. But there's different crediting modifiers that they're going to put on the indexes, and I get into detail on those in the book. So if you really want to learn like what to have, and I put tips for each thing that's to look for on those indexes. It's something that I felt it was misunderstood even back in 2003. That's why I wrote it, and it's even more now because insurance companies keep adding more and more complexity to the products. I'm trying to make it simple.
I've also seen that there's a lot of like dinner engagement things you can go to, clients can go to. And they really, I don't know, there just seems some stuff that's out there that's wrong. Some of the ads are wrong. They're misleading. I've heard a lot of them here on our sports station. There's a guy that's doing it that's from Tucson, Arizona, and I'm just not, it's not right. Some of the stuff that's going on.
Well, yeah, and some people, advertisers have maybe sold the sizzle more than the actual, or kind of selling a phantom number to mislead people and talking about 40%, 50% bonuses and on income, but not actually your actual money. So when I get into it with clients, they think maybe they got something that it's not really what it is.
I remember that one time you and I were sitting there at the booth, and there was a guy from back east, and he was arguing with us that he says, I am getting 8% guaranteed. You remember that?
Yeah.
And he was arguing, and it wasn't guaranteed. It was none of it was
he
guaranteed.
Actually became a client, and he tells me, I thank you for explaining later, much later.
It wasn't 8%. It was if he took it in income. Right. It wasn't on the principal. He thought he had 8% walk away.
I think the bottom line, like just to try to explain something really quick, because we don't have that much time, but if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And if you're hearing a 50% bonus on something, insurance companies have to turn profit, and they've got to invest that money in something and then guarantee something back. Well, insurance companies are required to have about 70 to 80% of their portfolios in high investment grade bonds and treasuries. So maybe, now they're getting pretty good returns, 6-7%, but they can't be giving you 50 if they're only making 7.
Right.
So just, understand that. Now, the cool thing about indexed annuities is what they're doing is they're taking part of the money, putting it into bonds. This is behind the scenes. You're not actually, if you're an annuity investor, you're not actually doing this, but they are behind the scenes. They're buying bonds and they're buying call options to hedge the upside. So the bonds hedge the downside, and then the call options will hedge the upside. So if the market takes off, they're going to make money on those calls. But if it tanks, they're going to let the options expire, but they'll make the yield from the bonds. So they got it hedged on both sides, and that's how they're able to do it. There is a method to the
and there's
madness.
also volume. They're dealing with volume.
They are, and they're doing, they're buying bonds and options directly with the large banks that a normal citizen couldn't do.
Right.
And so it's a huge $1 billion scale. But yeah, it's a great opportunity right now. I'll kind of briefly, because it looks like we're running out of time, to go over one of my favorites right now. We've got one that has a 8% bonus up front. Now, this isn't the phantom bonuses at 50% or that's on your income base. This is actual true.
So I put in 100,000. What is it worth?
It's 108. So it's like going into the Vegas. You're doing your playing your blackjack,
you're 2 for 1,
and they're giving you 8% of chips extra to play, and it's on the house. So you come right away, you get 100,000 is now 108, and then it's going to get the income base will get a bonus. Continue to get bonuses. I don't want to say that word bonus, but it makes good returns guaranteed. Well, I don't want, for your listeners, I don't want you to think of the income base and the credits that they're paying as actual money. It's really irrelevant. All that matters is your payout, the payout number. And so what is
income number?
The income number. Mm-hmm. What is your actual income? I don't care if somebody's running up, giving me 50, 200% bonuses. That doesn't mean anything. If they're only giving me a 3% payout of that bonus, it doesn't amount to anything.
Right.
So that number is just kind of, if you're here, you got a dinner seminar or hearing a radio ad, what is my actual income? That's the number I care about. But so this has an 8% bonus. This is a rare thing, 100% walkaway liquidity. Yeah. So if I put in 100,000,
you told me about that, I couldn't.
And in the 30 days later, I get buyer's remorse, or 6 months later, a year later, or somebody presents me with another opportunity, I can guarantee to get all the money I invested back. And that's rare. That's very rare.
Except the bonus. You don't get the
you're
bonus.
Locked in. They say Roach Motels.
But you don't get the bonus.
You lose your bonus, but at least you can walk away with that 100% of your money. It has amazing payouts. So we just ran a 65-year-old couple putting in, if whatever they put in, if $1 million, 100,000, but they're going to get 11% payout if they start in 5 years.
The 65-year-old couple.
65-year-old couple. So if they put $1 million in, they're going to be getting 111,000 for the rest of their lives if they start in 5 years. So if $1 million, you're getting 111,000. That's pretty good return. Income guaranteed. Now the annuity has a lot of great indexing and good growth opportunities based on the S&P 500 and other indexes. But even if that all goes to pot and the market tanks year after year, you're guaranteed to have the 111,000 for the rest of your life. And if either of the spouses can't do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, that number will double. So they're getting 222,000. Yeah. Whoa. So pretty good deal. Now that will last for 5 years and then revert back to after the 5 years, it'll revert back to the original 111.
Well, but I know there's probably more highlights on that.
There's a lot of stuff
I know that Roger Michalski, so he's the editor, publisher of Eagle. And Roger when you introduced this to him, he was so excited about it that he wrote about it in one of their columns.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why it was difficult to get you on today is because you have been 24/7 on the phone talking with folks about this opportunity that Roger talked about. And then I know Mark Skousen talked about it. So, I mean, it's a big thing right now. And this is a product that we have in our quiver.
Yeah,
and it's something that we make available to our client, but there's others too.
We have every independent contract.
And I think that's the key.
Thousands.
That's the key is that you and our staff and some of our other reps that we have and myself, but I try to focus on the estate planning stuff, but I know that you and your key staff and reps are trained on looking and for ways to help our people find this safe money option and take these chips off the table and take the risk off the table for some of their stuff. And they need to do that. And
I think something real quick is that we are fiercely independent, and maybe to a fault. Like we have to find the best deal or opportunity. And I have really awesome software that I can search every annuity in America instantly. And I think
I think
what the payouts are.
I think it came from my competitive nature. I always want to make sure that, but I know you're competitive as well. And that competitive nature has led us to try to make sure we find the best for our clients. And when we do that, and like I said, maybe to a fault, but I want to encourage, first of all, our listeners. Thank you, Todd, for being here, and we'll have you back. We'll have you back soon. And we finish with the mistakes, and I'm going to start focusing on some other things, and we'll have you back. But I want to make sure that our listeners find out where you can get this information. Generational Wealth Strategies, our newsletter, not only has a column by Todd every month, it has what I think is the gem of the newsletter, the diamond of the newsletter, and that is the best of the month, because you have, and you actually have this particular product you were talking about. I'm looking at it right here.
I call it the unicorn.
Yeah, the unicorn. I'm not going to tell you what the name of it is, but you do call it the unicorn, and it may end up being a unicorn, but it's available right now for sure. And I also want you to make sure that you order Todd's new book, Guaranteed Income: How to Lock in Double-Digit Returns for the Rest of Your Life, formerly known as the Future Retirement Savings. So thank you, Todd, and thanks to all of you for being here today and listening and participating with us. Give us a call. Toll-free number is 888-892-1102. That's if you have any questions, you want to talk to Todd specifically, 888-892-1102. This will all be in the show notes, of course, or go to the website, epmez.com, and then go to shop.epmez.com and order some of the books. I know Todd's book will be on there probably next week, I think, at least in report form, and then you'll be making it available as a book. Well, again, thanks for listening. This is David T. Phillips and Todd Phillips signing off for another episode of Estate Planning Made Easy, the podcast. Have a great day. Bye now.